I'll ask everybody to stay muted during the service, except for our bar mitzvah boy, who's going to unmute himself. Nathan, we're so glad to see you. We're so glad to see you there with your family. You want to just say Shabbat Shalom to everybody before we begin the service?
Shabbat Shalom.
We're very happy to celebrate alongside you. Good to see you there with your folks. And we've actually got 2 whole camerafuls of your family there in your home, which is wonderful.
In my home.
Terrific.
He's got enough of us already.
All right, everybody. Well, we'll begin with a song to get in that Shabbat spirit. This song, Olam Chesed Yibaneh, means that it's up to us to build a world that is full of care and love, that is full of chesed. So, Cantor, would you lead us in our opening song, please? Just a reminder, because it's been a little while since we've done a service like this, that when you see myself or Cantor along with the screen share, you have the ability to actually feel a part of the entire congregation here on Zoom by just going to the little view button at the top right of your Zoom screen and clicking side by side gallery. That will let you split the difference between the words and the faces of everybody, so we can see one another singing together and share those joyful moments of Shabbat together as a community. I'd like to share with you a poem by Humbert Wolf called October Eves. As we begin this evening, he says, "In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer. I know I am but summer to your heart, and not the full 4 seasons of the year. Spring passes, and one remembers one's innocence. Summer passes, and one remembers one's exuberance. Autumn passes, and one remembers one's reverence. Winter passes, and one remembers one's perseverance. Listen, the wind is rising, and the air is wild with leaves. We have had our summer evenings, now for October Eves." Look forward to sharing many October evenings together in the next few Shabbatot as we enter this autumn season. And as the leaves begin to change and things begin to start up again, we're also very happy to be celebrating the beginnings of so many things here at TBT, including our religious school beginning this Sunday, and including a new baby getting a name this weekend, and including Nathan, your bar mitzvah as part of our community, a milestone for your family and also for our congregation. And so in that respect, we are very happy to invite you together with your mom, Jessica, to please lead us in the lighting of the Shabbat candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu v'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'chad l'ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. And we can all sing that blessing along with Cantor as well as we light our own Shabbat candles in our homes.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Excellent. Thank you very much, Millers. And Nathan, we'll hear from you in just a little bit. But for now, we'll begin our Kabbalat Shabbat service, the medieval service that comes from the mystics who viewed Shabbat as an opportunity to feel a renewed sense of connection with community and with God. And as such, they prescribed the singing of psalms at the beginning of the service. And so we begin with this psalm, call out to God, Shiru Ladonai, sing to God a new song. And we hope you will sing along too. I hope we're starting to feel a little more warmed up and a little bit more relaxed, because that's exactly the point. After a long week, Shabbat gives us a chance to focus on some of the truly important things like our relationships and our lives and our health and the beauty of the world around us. And so we continue with Lecha Dodi, this ancient piyut, this ancient liturgical poem, which envisions an opportunity for our ancestors to go out from the mountain, beautiful mountain dwellings in the north of Israel, and take a deep breath of release and new energy for Shabbat, and go out there to meet God. And so as we sing Lecha Dodi, I hope before you join in, you'll just take a moment to listen to Cantor sing, and then take a deep breath. Imagine that cool mountain air, or perhaps you don't have to imagine that cool air because you've got some right where you are right now, and join in the singing together, Lecha Dodi. rise and face the entrance of our home. And as we stay standing, we'll transition into our Ma'ariv service, the traditional Jewish evening service. As the sun goes down, we literally and figuratively rise together and are counted as one community. This is a point in our service where if you feel comfortable to turn on your camera, if you haven't yet, we would love to invite you to do that and be seen and recognized among our community as we count one another and count on one another to be in our prayer service together. We continue with the Baruch Hu. And we can have a seat if we prefer to do so at this time. We'll continue with a prayer for creation and specifically the changing of day to night. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, v'chochma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna meshane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umesader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uvein layla, Adonai Tzevaot Shemo. El Chai V'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. Blessed are you, O God, who brings on the evening. And we can read together this English translation of our prayer for Torah. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. We continue with the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
And Nathan, at this point, we'll invite you to unmute yourself and to lead us in the Ve'ahavta.
Ready? Let's do it.
Mhm.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol lavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ela asher anochi netzabecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibartam bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha u'vlechtecha b'derech u'shampecha u'kumecha u'kshartam leot al yadecha v'chayu letotafot b'neinecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim leloechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etem me'eretz Mitzrayim lehiot lachem Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem.
Adonai Elohechem emet. It's hard for me to keep up with that rich bass voice and such a skillful chanter. And we're all very proud of you, and we'll be very proud when you become bar mitzvah tomorrow. I saw my nephew, the baby Jay, clapping for you, and he doesn't clap for me. So I hope that's worth something for you. We'll continue now, friends, in our service with our freedom song, and we can read this together and be inspired by the timeless meaning of connecting to our ancestors past from slavery to liberation. We read together, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hand by hand, marching together. Mi chamocha. Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael. Blessed are you, O God, Redeemer of Israel. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives might be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world, and I am free. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Blessed are you, O God, you spread your canopy of peace over us and our people, over all of Jerusalem. I'll invite everybody to please rise, if you're comfortable doing so, for our Amidah.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agita hilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanor El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'kodnei Hakol, V'zocher Chastei Avot Be'imahot, U'mevi Geula Livnei B'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham Ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol atah Rav Lehoshia. Meshiv HaRuach U'marid HaGashem. Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei HaKol Berachamim Rabim. Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim, Umati Asurim, Umekayei Memunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Bagivurot, Umidomelach, Melech Meimit Umechayeh, U'matzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, U'kedoshim b'chol yom ya'alelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
I'll invite us now into just a few moments of silent prayer, silent meditation, a chance for us to feel the stillness around us and ask the questions or say the things that we've been needing to say this week. Feel free to take your time and have a seat whenever you're ready. And in a few moments, we will join together in a meditation for peace. Rabbi J. Michelson reflects as follows. He says, when life is full of ease, spirituality is like cotton candy, fluffy, airy, and unserious. And then something happens. Someone gets sick, or a relationship ends, or a pet dies, or I lose my job. And then we go searching for something, for meaning, not necessarily answers, but significance. Now the self-satisfied smirk of the critic melts into something less sure of itself. What can be understood in the midst of this tragedy about the fragility of the human condition, or the impossibility of holding on to it? And what are the forms which, over the years, people like all of us have created to contain such pain? Thus, pain becomes a gateway to recovery of the spiritual tones of living. I fail, I lose, and so I grow closer to the parts of myself which feel more authentic, more connected. Spiritual paths may not be as sophisticated or arch as others' ways of being. They may be mocked in the pages of the New York Times, but at some point, most of us find ourselves broken, and hopefully broken open. That idea of being broken open as a gateway to the spiritual experience is an idea that we have inherited from Hasidic Judaism. And so we take a moment now to recognize the ways in which we are all broken, and especially some of us feel broken open this evening with the suffering of illness and pain. I will share the name of those made known to our congregation for Misha Berach prayers. And after I read them, I invite you, if you have someone that I did not read their name that you'd like to mention for Misha Berach, I'd be happy to read their name aloud as well. And you can add that to the chat. First, we think of our members for healing: April Diamato, Burton Boardman, Norma Diamond, Henry Gettenberg, Carol Gordon, Sandra Hyman, Tom Louie, and Josh Lipschitz, and also loved ones made known to us: Connie Ambrosino, Stephen Verdi, Claire Fenton, Mickey Bart, Jay Fliss, Herman Meha, Sue Yeris, Soraya Casey, Sarah Beggs, Sarah Bryant, Helen Dreyfus, Jennifer Murphy, Lillian Wasserman, Harold Asher, Seth Axelrod, Betsy Carlson, Ben Peck, Mark Potter, Martha Potter, Gloria Jennings, Sabine Meyer, Gloria Newell, Lois Smith, Joan Sidney, Ira Weiss, Betsy Powers Brown, Maris McNeil, Chuck Pajot, Mark Ostreicher, Bart Young, and Sydney Shore. If there are others who you'd like to recognize at this time in need of healing, I'll be glad to read them. And among those, we include Jean Kislak and all others whom we hold in mind for renewal of body, mind, or spirit as we join our voices together in the Misha Berach prayer.
Bless the
Some of you came to dance with us this past Tuesday at Camp Laurelwood as we celebrated Simchat Torah. When we finished reading the Torah, we read from the end of Deuteronomy and started immediately right at the beginning of Genesis. And we all know that first story, right? The story of God creating everything from scratch in 7 days. Well, it may surprise you to know that there are at least 2 inaccuracies in what I just said. So while we're on this first portion of the Torah, let's clear those up. They may surprise you, or maybe not. Misconception 1, God created everything in 7 days. This story from Genesis chapter 1 is the basis for the 7-day week, and hence much of the way human societies organize their time in this day and age. But in truth, the work in chapter 1 of Genesis takes place in 6 days. As we sing in our Vishamru prayer, Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Remember, Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai. In 6 days, it says, God created everything. According to chapter 1, God took 6 days to complete all the stuff of creation: land, sky, light and dark, vegetation, animals, human beings. And then on the 7th day, God rested. Shabbat, which literally means rest, is thus an act of creation on a different order than how we usually conceive it. This is a countercultural thing. God's most important act of creation was an abstention from creation. So in pausing and sanctifying the 7th day, God set in motion a cosmic gift to the Jewish people. The idea that even next to the creation of the world, the least creative act, at least the way we usually think of creativity, is also the holiest one. In the words of Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, who wrote a beautiful book called The Sabbath, a realm in time, that's what Shabbat is, where the goal is not to have, but to be, not to own, but to give, not to control, but to share, not to subdue, but to be in accord. Life goes wrong, Rabbi Heschel says, when the control of space, the acquisition of things of space, becomes our sole concern. Heschel described Shabbat as a sort of freedom from all that ensnares us in the modern world of things. The allegory of that 7th day in our first Bible story reminds us that we are of this world, and yet the world is not primarily for us. On day 6, we hear humans were created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God, the pinnacle of creation. We are so special, created in the divine image. Wow. And then immediately on day 7, we remember that it's not all about us. The world existed almost in entirety before us and might continue to exist well after us. We are just travelers passing through. Misconception 2. God created the world from scratch. How many of us grew up hearing, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth," or something like that? Raise of hands. How many is something like that familiar? We're all so intimately connected to the King's English, the King James version of the Bible, which influenced a lot of the way that we understand the Torah in English-speaking world. And yet it completely misunderstands the intent of the Hebrew for 2 reasons. First, because Bereshit does not mean in the beginning. And second, because the story does not start at the beginning. On the semantics point, I'll ask that you trust me for an explanation about the Hebrew at a later date when we have a little more time. But let's just say that without diving into all the grammatical particulars, please know that the first verse of Genesis is untranslatable in its present form. We don't know what it means. The thing that we can tell is that what it's not saying is that God created the world from scratch. But that's the problem for that Vishamru verse, right? As I sang before, Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, God created everything in 6 days. Although creation from scratch is a classical theological idea, and it's a requirement even of traditional Jewish theology, it is not required, and in fact, it is not possible when you read the plain meaning of the text. And don't take my word for it, ask Rashi, our greatest medieval commentator. He says as follows in his comment to the first verses of the book of Genesis. If you were to say that scripture indicates the order of creation simply, be astounded at yourself, for the water came first. As it's written, and the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the water. That's what it says, by the way, in the first couple of verses. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, ve'haaretz hayta tohu vavohu. So the land that God had just started forming was shapeless and formless. And there was choshech al panei tehom. There was darkness covering the depths. Veruach Elohim merachefet al panei hamayim. And the Spirit of God hovers over the face of the mayim, of the water. What, says Rashi? We didn't hear from the Torah yet when the creation of the water took place. What is water doing at the beginning of the creation story, if it in fact is a chronology? And that is one of the tricky things. What you learned in Hebrew school is not right. The Torah is not trying to tell us a strict chronology of how the world was created. Ironically, while centuries of pious believers in Judaism and Christianity and many other faiths insisted that these sacred scriptures are to be taken literally, it just takes a little careful reading to notice that we're not getting the full story when we read the first chapter of the Torah. So there are many misconceptions. These were just a couple, which can disguise some deeper lessons in the Torah's epic opening. And if we read slowly, if we read carefully, new possibilities present themselves. From misconception 1, we learn that Shabbat is not just another day in the week, but rather a different order of creation, one that we carry with us as an eternal gift as Jewish people. That's what we sing when we sing V'shamru or Yismechu. It reminds us, that gift does, to balance the ego and the world. The writer John Green likes to use a geological measurement of time called the Anthropocene, the human-centered world. It describes not only the recent period of geologic history in which we have had a significant impact as a human species on Earth's climate and ecosystems, but also, as its name suggests, an attitude of us-centeredness, the human-centered world. That can be dangerously myopic. Hence, the Torah gives us tales to caution us concerning the destructive potential of such a view. It's like the classic story of Reb Simcha Bunim, the Hasidic story that you might have heard me mention before, where he says, I have 2 pieces of paper, one that I keep in each of my pockets, and they both have biblical verses on them. And one says, for my sake, the world was created. And the other says, I am but dust and ashes. And depending on the situation, we have to pull either one of them out, because they both help keep us centered and show little pieces of the truth of the human condition. From misconception number 2, that's the one about the order of creation and whether God in fact started creating from scratch at the beginning of the Torah. When we think about that a little more deeply, we learn that Genesis is not trying to solve the question of how it all began. So people who try to harmonize the Bible with scientific understandings of cosmology and evolution are, in my opinion, kind of missing the point. The story that we have is one that our ancestors took seriously, but not necessarily literally. And I think we should too. It's a powerful mythological approach to life's greatest mystery, one that tends to invite more questions than it answers, as you probably now have more questions than I answered in the past 7 minutes for you, which is very good. And in these ways, and in this particular manner, I would say the beginning of the Torah is much like Judaism itself. It's a reminder that our lives have infinite potential, and that we are, at the same time, each cosmic wayfarers in a story that began long, long before any of us and will unfold long afterward. Like a mystery, my favorite understanding of a mystery is that it's not called a mystery because it's unknowable, But because it is so infinitely knowable, there are so many questions to ask, there are so many things to know about it, that there is no end to the learning. And if that isn't Jewish, I don't know what is. I'm now going to invite our president, Sarah Mervine, who is here to offer us greetings on behalf of our leadership. Hello, Sarah.
Hello. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm Sarah Mervine, and as he said, I'm president of TVT. Welcome to everyone here tonight. So nice to see everyone here. Tomorrow, join us for Jewish mindfulness and meditation. It's at 8 a.m. If you've never tried it, give it a try. It's on Zoom, very easy to turn on. Right after that, we have Torah study at 9 a.m. and we have some guest speakers there because Rabbi Moss and Cantor Boyle will be busy getting ready for the bar mitzvah of Nathan Miller, which will be at 10 o'clock on Zoom. So you can all watch that as well. No pressure, Nathan, because we know you're going to do great. And then this Sunday, religious school is back. We're back in person, finally. So check your inbox. You'll have something from Cantor Boyle that's saying where your child goes and at what time if you're confused. Tuesday, my goodness, we have a lot going on. Tuesday at 7, if you are interested in helping resettle a refugee family, please come to a meeting at 7 o'clock on Zoom with social justice, and that link is in your inbox. All of these links are in your inbox. There's more. Next Friday, our service is 6:30 back in person on the green. And then 2 weeks from tonight, Rabbi Moss is going to be installed as the officially installed as our rabbi. So do not miss that. That's going to be in person, but there's specific rules of how you have to RSVP. So if you can, make sure you look at that announcement. 6:30, and I just want to say Dudley Farm, and be sure to RSVP. And there will be a kiddush, a pre-neg beforehand, 5:30 to 6:30. That was a lot. We have a lot of celebrations. So Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom, Sarah, and thank you very much. And thanks to all of you who have come to join us in Yachadut, in fellowship, in togetherness this evening. We know that even though we can't be with one another in body, we nevertheless feel the holy connections and the admiration and connections between our community here in this virtual space. I know that was a lot of information that you just got, so don't worry, we're going to be sending you reminders, and including, as Susie is noting on the website, in your shofar, which went out, I think, right before Shabbat, in your weekly emails. And if you're very confused about anything, just let us know and we will help clarify it. We'll continue now with the conclusion of our service, beginning with Aleinu L'Shabeach, and we invite you to please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'atid gedula le'yotzeh bereshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu ki mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chalkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam. Ma'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Kakatuv b'toratecha Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. V'nemar v'haya Adonai le'melech al kol haaretz. Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad. U'shemo echad.
Everyone can have a seat. And we now turn our thoughts and our hearts to our loved ones, whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. We say, Zichronam livracha, may their memories endure for a blessing. Those in our community who are currently in the period of Shiva or Shloshim, the 7 or 30 days following a loss, include the following. Maxine Weinstein, cousin of Phyllis Kaufman, and Nicholas Avalone, partner of Amy Agranoff. If there are others who would like to share the name of a loved one for Kaddish, please feel free to do so after I share these yard sites. And if you are comfortable doing so, you may rise when I read the name of your loved one for yard site. Robert Weissman, Max Karp, Edith Sokoloff, Stephen Castro, Sally Chorches Green, Florence Wasserman, Annie Zinker, Jay Kislak, Jonas Weisberg, Sarah Engelman, Irving Richter, Richard Walker, Rose Friedman, Carrie Kevrick, Lee Leventhal, Murray Lewis, Samuel Topolowski, Ernest Rosen, Milton Cooperberg, Murray Dulgo, Beatrice Friesner, Max Klinzelberg, Jerome Stein, Jacob Kraus, Arthur Masler, and David Criven. Are there others who we should add to our Kaddish prayers this evening? Feel free to add their name to the chat if you would like at this time. We add Jerry Rosen. Are there any others this evening? Jack Reynolds. I'll invite all of us to rise in fellowship as one community as we share these hallowed words of comfort. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divrach chireutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehi shemei rabbah mevorach le'alam u'le'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yit hadar, v'yit aleh, v'yit halal, shmei d'kudesha barichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma, v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru, amen. May the one who brings peace into our world also bring peace to the hearts of all who mourn this evening. As together we say, amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru, amen.
Well, we can all have a seat, and it was such a joy to be able to gather together, albeit in this imperfect setting. We're looking forward to seeing more of one another in person, although our Zoom services will also continue in the weeks to come. And at this point, I will invite our bar mitzvah, Nathan, to please go ahead and unmute. And Nathan will lead us in the Kiddush and Motzi, the blessing over the sanctified wine or grape juice, and the challah. So Nathan, whenever you're ready, just take a moment and we'll join with you in these blessings.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
That's great, but let's do the Kiddush first.
Fine.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'Shabbat kudsho be'ahava u'ratzon, henchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reheshiv, ki hu yom techila l'mikra'eh kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, ki vanu v'chorta, ve'tanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'Shabbat kudsho be'ahava u'ratzon, chen kaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha'Shabbat.
Amen. L'chaim, beautifully chanted. Lovely. You can have a sip. And everybody who has your wine or grape juice, mine's upstairs, so I'm going to go get it right after this. We hope you enjoy the taste of Manischewitz. And Nathan, now you can go ahead and lead us in that motzi if you like.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Go ahead and take a bite. B'tei avon, very nicely done. It's so good to see you there with your folks and your grandparents and your brother Dylan, who I see over there in the background because he wants some challah. Yes, enjoy. We're certainly looking forward to celebrating with you and your family tomorrow morning, and hopefully anybody else who wants to join can do so too on Zoom. It's so easy these days. So again, Nathan, Yashar Koach, we're very proud of you and very excited to celebrate tomorrow. All that you need to do right now after this is get a good night's sleep, and we'll see you in the morning. For now, we'll end our service the way we began it, with song, and specifically the song Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Together we will build a world of love and compassion.
Olam chesed yibaneh, yadadai, 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 yadadai. 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 I will build this world from love. Yadadai, 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 yadadai. And you must build this world from love. Yadadai, 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 yadadai. And if we build this world from love, yadadai, 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 yadadai. Then God will build this world from love. Yadadai, 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 yadadai.
Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo b'shalom. God gives us strength. God, won't you bless us and our community with shalom, with peace. Everybody, we wish you a peaceful and enjoyable weekend. Shabbat shalom. And we'll look forward to seeing you in so many places in days to come. Feel free to unmute yourself and say Shabbat shalom if you wish. And thanks all for attending our service.